Well, this is an early morning at the area of Bahia de Banderas. As you can see, unfortunately, then again the external camera is not working as expected. We again have a very lousy quality of the image, so you can barely see the ocean reaching the beach, the foam of the waves as they break when they meet the land. Today we have a song that has some particularities that I would like to start by sharing. That in the first we need to mention that this is the case, or this week's case is a song that comes from Argentina. We have and maybe that's the place where I would like to start. Uh, if you may recall, when we had a chance of sharing the song Maria Lao, we mentioned back then that the relationship between Mexico and Cuba has has been very good. There has been a very supportive position of Mexico for the people of Cuba. So Mexicans like to see or feel very close to Cuba. Somehow Cubans also feel close to Mexicans. But we have to be very sincere and mention that it is not the same case as for Argentina. In fact, I would say that from a political view, the relationship between both countries has been almost non-existent. There has not been, as in the case of Spain, when we received the refugees after the Franquismo, that's not been the case, even though there's been dictatorships also in Argentina. We have not had support as it's been the case for Cuba and for Spain. As I like to insist again, there's not been a historically and politically there has not been a very close relationship between two countries, but that is not the same case as for artists and moreover in the performing arts and moreover singers and actors themselves. Mexico and Argentina have shared around 80, 90 years of musical interchange. More than anything, we have received many artists from Argentina who are very famous in Argentina and later on traveled or went to the other countries in the region. They reached Mexico and Mexico's people have loved them. There would be a very good number of such cases, but I wouldn't like to stop there. I would just like to remark again that the importance of the relationship between Mexico and Argentina has to do mainly in the field of art. And recently, maybe in the last 15, almost 20 years after the recent economical crisis that Argentina has been suffering, there's been many business people who have traveled to Mexico and have, let's say, rebooted. They have rebooted, or they have traveled, or they have positioned themselves in companies in Mexico. That would be the closest we are now. That would be for the first particularity. The second particularity that I would also like to share is that this could also be the case, or these postcards, the postcard for this week would also be the case of one of biographical content. This case we are talking, the song is Alfonsina y el mar, Alfonsina and the sea, and Alfonsina Storni, in fact, is the person to whom or for whom this song was written. This is we can consider it a very recent song in terms of when it was composed. It's not been not even 50 years that it was composed. It's, as I was telling you, somehow recent. And this biographical content that we are about to describe is one, or maybe the most important of the particularities of this week's song. I am keeping on, or I have been keeping on the screen a picture of Alfonsina Storni. because I would like to remind or to keep it present or to keep her presence throughout the whole video because not only because it is about somehow the end of her life, but also it is the spirit that guides this composition that was written, if I remember well, in the 70s. I may be mistaken. I don't have uh, that information at hand, but if my memory is working somehow properly, that would be the case for this week's composition or song. Well, I also would like to mention now that we are about to start sharing the the music or the song, that given that she was a poet, I think we should stop there for and to share a few minutes about her biography because the first thing that we need to start sharing is that Alfonsina Storni committed suicide when she was still very young, at least to our standards. She was barely 46 years old when she decided to commit suicide. She drowned herself and Mar de la Plata. Um, there are some people who say that she I would say in a very respectful way, that it seems to me very romantic that she started walking to the sea until she drowned. I would like to insist myself that a very romantic way of disappearing, even though that's how it is described in the song, as we will see in a couple of minutes. But there are other people who say that she actually threw herself or jumped from a cliff into the ocean. Her body was discovered the very next day. People say that we were very fortunate that the oceans gave back her body for it to be properly. You know, there are ceremonies, and the body usually rests where the family decides it to be. So some people say that we were very fortunate that the ocean gave her body back. Uh, there's been also there are no more than, well, as it is the case of a famous poet committing suicide. There's been people who have been researched or investigated in her so for clues, looking for clues on how is it that she came up to decide that she would eventually finish her life by herself. And there's been some things that have come up. I would like to insist again very respectfully that it was found that she had a very sad childhood. Uh, a father who was usually drunk, a mother who was not very supportive. She had to work very early in her life. She gave birth to a son, only a son. There was only a boy that she gave birth. She never get married. She had to work to provide, you know, to provide the food, the meals, and all the means to her son. And so, what we see in her life is that her childhood was very sad. It did not really improve throughout the years, and she spent most of her life alone. People tend to think that that's one of the reasons why she decided to commit this suicide. Um, and I think that maybe those could be reasons for what she did. We also need to recall, then again, very respectfully, that a couple of years before she committed suicide, uh, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was under treatment, but I read in one of her of the notes of her biography that she really suffered a lot, that she made comments such as that she felt she was dying every day because of pain. She couldn't enjoy life anymore. Um, there are a couple of notes that I would also like to mention around this topic, and one of them is that for this let me recall an anecdote that I had when I was at the university. I had a friend who was actually a dancer at the ballet, at a local very famous ballet, the Amalia Hernandez Ballet in Mexico. And I remember that I made a joke, and I recall him, like seeing this shadow of pain or sorrow cross his face right after my joke. I noticed, and I asked him if he had taken the joke too seriously, and I recall him replying me back that I have to keep in mind that all artists have their emotions. They always have their emotions at the peak. Artists do not feel the way most of people feel. People or artists are so exposed in their emotions so that they can create this art. So he reminded me in that very kind way that he felt everything much more, if you amplify it, if you wish, than many people do. That's what I would like to. Why am I making reference to this anecdote? Because we are seeing the life of Alfonsina through our eyes when we need to understand what were their emotions at that time. Maybe, yeah, that sad childhood. Yeah, maybe spending all her life alone. She was successful. She was invited, and she was part of a very important academic and cultural life in Argentina and in South America. She even received some prizes, awards for her career and creations. But still, there was something inside of her that led her to make her decision, and this is how it all ended up for her. Uh, the lyrics of this song, uh, I will bring it up on the screen at the end of the song because I would like to point to the fact that as you may recall, I am not very good at translating, and now it is even more difficult because we will talk about poetry and the lyrics that I found that were written that I find that were written for Alfonsina leaving us are, from my perspective, mere poetry. More difficult to translate, but I will give you the sense of what that actually means. It is also a very good time to uh, turn off my camera. As I have insisted many times in the past, it is not really important that I am on the screen, but important is what we are about to share. So what I am doing now is that I am putting on the screen the lyrics of the song. Let's recall it is called Alfonsina y el Mar. I think it is pretty obvious why the name of the song makes reference to the ocean, the place that she decided she wanted to die. I would also like to mention that, as it is the case when, if you recall, when I have talked about Maria Grieber, we have made reference to how she composes in a very natural way of Mexicans speak. I would like to say that given that this is a song by an Argentinian composer for an Argentinian poet, it has all the particularities of the Argentinian music for any of you who are familiar with how Argentinians and speak and how their music goes like. And the song starts by telling us or giving us a description on on one of the versions, on how she actually died. And it says, Por la blanda arena que lame el mar, su pequeña huella no vuelve más. Un sendero solo de pena y silencia llegó hasta el agua profunda. Un sendero solo de penas mudas llegó hasta la espuma. That means that on this soft sand that reaches the sea, her small, very small footprint is not coming back. If you would like to picture that in your minds, it is as if you are looking just as I am now, or a position where you can see the sea, and you can see her footprints as they are reaching the sea, but you don't see footprints coming back. The music, if you, of course, it's been said that Mercedes Sosa, in fact, Mercedes Sosa, this Argentinian singer, is the most iconic singer of, she is the most iconic singer of this song. And she identified the feeling of this song, and she used to say, por la blanda arena que lame el mar, su pequeña huella no vuelve más. Un sendero solo de pena y silencio llegó hasta el agua profunda. Un sendero solo de penas mudas llegó hasta la espuma. Here we have the reference not only on how her small foot reaches the sea and that there are no footprints showing her coming back, but for the first time it is mentioned that there is a trace, a lonely trace of mute sorrow, making reference to what I had just shared with you. She had suffered so much throughout her life, but it was pain, it was sorrow that she always kept for herself. And when in the lyrics it is mentioned that this is alone we are making, or lonely this lonely trace makes reference to the fact that she spent her life alone. As we move ahead with the lyrics, we have Sabe Dios qué angustia te acompañó, qué dolores viejos cayó tu voz para recostarte arrullada en el canto de las caracolas marinas. Sabe Dios qué angustia te acompañó. What I like about that phrase is that the author himself makes reference to what I had just mentioned you earlier. Only God, of course, if you believe in God, this is a very nice reference, by the way. Only God really knows. In here, we accept that we are unable to understand how Alfonsina felt. So we have to accept that only God knows what it was that how it was that sorrow that was always her companionship. ¿Qué dolores viejos cayó tu voz? Then again, making reference to her sad childhood. The phrase here, cayó tu voz, then again makes reference to the fact that she kept all that pain for herself, so that all that pain, that loneliness, made you decide to go, to make you go. So you decided to lay down and be in the bottom of the ocean para recostarte arrollada en el canto de las caracolas marinas, la canción que canta en el fondo oscuro del mar la caracola. So the song has evolved from telling us how she reaches the sea, then telling us the reasons, unknown reasons to us on why she decided to proceed like that, and then it's starting to describe how it's about to start describing how her life in the bottom of the sea is. The melody of the song goes like, sabe Dios qué angustia te acompañó, qué dolores viejos cayó tu voz para recostarte arrullada en el canto de las caracolas marinas. La canción que canta en el fondo oscuro del mar, la caracola. And for the very first time it is mentioned one of the most well-known parts of the song. Te vas Alfonsina con tu soledad, qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar. So you, Alfonsina, you are leaving us, and you and your loneliness. What new poems are you looking for? Because it is now said that she left us and she joined the sea only because she had to continue writing poetry from the bottom of the ocean. So that's what it makes reference, the phrase de Te vas Alfonsina con tu soledad, qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar, una voz antigua de viento y de sal te requiebra el alma y la está llevando. Y te vas hacia allá como en sueños dormida Alfonsina vestida de mar. This is a very perfect, not only a very lovely way of writing, I mean the inspiration to write these lines to share with us that she had just left us to reach the sea and continue her poetry from there, and that a very antique voice made out of wind and salt is now breaking your soul and it's taking it away. And so you leave and you go there as if you were carried in dreams, you Alfonsina now sleeping, now dressing in sea. Te vas Alfonsina con tu soledad. ¿Qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar? Una voz antigua de viento y de sal te requiebra el alma y la está llevando y te vas hacia allá como en sueños, dormida Alfonsina, vestida de mar. Right after that phrase, now we have a much deeper or a much more, I would say, complete or starts a much closer description of what her life is about to be there. Because even though it is giving us information or describing us not only her life and how it is that she decided to commit that suicide, we have the hope or we like to picture her in a very joyful and beautiful life with the inhabitants of the sea. So it is said that five small mermaids will carry you away in in the ocean paths that are called of algas y de coral. Y fosforescentes caballos marinos harán una ronda a tu lado y los habitantes del agua van a jugar pronto a tu lado. This is the part of the song that actually describes what we would like to see her life living with them in the sea. Cinco sirenitas te llevarán por caminos de algas y de coral, y fosforescentes caballos marinos harán una ronda a tu lado, y los habitantes del agua van a jugar pronto a tu lado. Then it comes a phrase that, of course, it is a very sad phrase because it says now, bájame la lámpara un poco más, déjame que duerma nodriza en paz. Y si llama a él, no le digas que estoy, dile que Alfonsina no vuelve. Y si llama a él, no le digas nunca que estoy, di que me he ido. This is almost a perfect site I will give you more information about that in a few minutes. But this bájame la lámpara un poco más, what she asks the woman who has always taken care of herself is to just lower the light of the lamp a little more because she really wants to fall asleep. So she says, I want to fall asleep in peace. This expression, when you tell that somebody wants to rest in peace, I think it's self-explanatory. Y si llama a él, no le digas que estoy, dile que Alfonsina no vuelve. So if he calls, just let him know that I'm not here. Tell him that Alfonsina is not coming back. So this part of the song goes, of course, very sad. Says, bájame la lámpara un poco más, déjame que duerma nodriza en paz. Y si llama a él, no le digas que estoy, dile que Alfonsina no vuelve. Y si llama a él, no le digas nunca que estoy, di que me he ido. Repeats the phrase of Tebas Alfonsina con tu soledad, qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar. Una voz antigua de viento y de sal te requiebra el alma y la está llevando. Y te vas hacia allá como en sueños, dormida Alfonsina vestida de mar. Te vas, Alfonsina, con tu soledad. ¿Qué poemas nuevos fuiste a buscar? Una voz antigua de viento y de sal te requiebra el alma y la está llevando y te vas hacia allá como en sueños, dormida Alfonsina, vestida de mar. I would like to wrap this song. What I would like to share for wrapping up this making of postcard is the actual poem she was publishing regularly on a local media, local newspaper in Argentina. She prepared her departure with, I think, lots of details. She said goodbye. She left her son by the train so that he would be on a different city. I mean, she didn't want her son to be with her. And 1 week before committing suicide, she published this letter that I am about to read. So this is actually the last part of poetry that she wrote. I would like to read it because you will find that most of the lyrics of the song are in fact taken from this letter. I will not be making the translation, apologies for that, but I would like to keep the natural intonation and rhythm of this song. Dientes de flores, cofia de rocío, manos de hierbas, tú, nodriza fina, tenme puestas las sábanas terrosas y el edredón de musgos escardados. Voy a dormir, nodriza mía, acuéstame. Ponme una lámpara a la cabecera, una constelación, la que te guste. Todas son buenas. Bájala un poquito. Déjame sola. ¿Oyes romper los brotes? Te acuna un pie celeste desde arriba y un pájaro te traza unos compases. Para que olvides. Gracias. Ah, un encargo. Si él llama nuevamente por teléfono, le dices que no insista, que he salido.